Hello everyone, I'm DonTheCrown, and today I want to talk about Titan Quest 2, which is a demo version that's currently available on Steam, and this is the kind of the return of Titan Quest. If you've never heard of this game before, I'm not surprised. Titan Quest originally came out back in 2006, so almost 20 years ago. However, it has had 4 different expansions over the years, one pretty recently after it came out, another one 11 years later, and I believe the most recent expansion was in December of 2021. And this game was announced to be kind of in production in 2023. And so Titan Quest is kind of a real OG ARPG, and today I kind of want to go over my experiences with playing it and see if it kind of is going to be offering a fresh viewpoint into the ARPG space, or is it kind of just really doing the stuff that it was doing before and not really like offering all that much. Now, to be fair, Titan Quest 1 was kind of before my ARPG days. I didn't really truly start enjoying and getting into ARPGs until Diablo 3 really came out. And I actually tried to play Titan Quest 1 back in the day, and it was like a lot. It was very, very complex, a lot of different things kind of going on, and just wasn't something I was really interested at the time. And they've kind of taken some of the gimmicks that give a lot of complexity and a lot of different like character design, kind of brought them forward into Titan Quest 2, which I think is potentially quite a good thing. Now, I've played through the first act of the campaign for about like 40 minutes on each character, and on my first character decided to play pretty much pure spellcaster, whereas the second time I wanted to play as a melee dude. And the experience I have to say between the two is definitely very different. Now, you might notice right off the bat that my character looks pretty different here, and that's because when you first start the game, you do have a little bit of customization options here to kind of like pick what your character looks like. This doesn't really seem to have any sort of additional customization besides what you see here. You're not able to like really make any changes, and maybe this is something that they will change in the future. I thought this was pretty neat that you do have different like looks and appearances that are available to you. Now, just hopping into the game real quick, pretty much on the spellcaster here, I had a pretty easy time. We right now have access to 3 different masteries, and this is kind of the gimmick, if you would, of Titan Quest, is that every single class is a combination of 2 masteries. In this particular one, we went through Storm and Earth. These are kind of 2 different spellcaster masteries. Right now we only have access to 3 masteries, Storm, Earth, and Warfare, but there are a whole ton of them that supposedly are coming back to Titan Quest 2. I believe they said they're going to have all of them, which I believe is a lot of different combinations, which is pretty exciting. However, pretty much what you get is access to a pool of active skills and a pool of passive skills that you can power up your character with. And leveling skills in this game is a bit different than other ARPGs. So if you see here, this main skill that I've been using, Call Lightning, is level 5. But leveling up the skill itself doesn't actually give me any like direct damage. The amount of damage that this did at level 1 is the same as at level 5, but what it does open up is additional customization slots. And these are kind of like support gems, from like Path of Exile or something like that, where I can go and spend some of these like little shield areas on, customizing the skill. And so Call Lightning here at like kind of baseline will just drop down a little lightning strike, but I can go into here and make it so that it repeats itself up to 3 times within a 1-second interval, and it just lowers the damage by 35% and increases the energy or mana cost by 40, which is pretty darn powerful since this does hit pretty hard, just allowing it to kind of repeat itself. I found that this was like a pretty smooth way to level. And there's other stuff you can do in here, like increasing the amount of damage it does, but you can, it takes longer to hit, and the amount of time it takes to kind of delay the hit does go up. So I wouldn't be surprised to see at very end game a combination of the repeat and the delayed impact. And I thought that this system was pretty neat, and it does appear that there's like 5 different slots up here. So even if you get this all the way to level 17, you're only going to be able to put points into 5 of these different ones. And some of these options do give you the ability to get like different buffs, or even like get a kind of debuff on your character for more damage, more cast speed, and less cost. However, taking kind of damage over time for every cast type of thing. So there's a little bit of like kiss curse stuff going on in here, which I think is pretty neat. Now, you might notice that on the left here, I have this divinity bar thing. This pretty much allows you to invest into higher tiers for your mastery. And this is kind of independent of how many points I spend on active points. So it doesn't really care if I put like any points in Call Lightning or any points into any of these other skills that are available at this point. All it cares about is if I put into divinity points. Makes me believe that at like once I had enough to go all the way to the top here, I could just use the top skill and not worry about anything else. There is a respec mode that allows me to like take the points out, and it's not really a big deal. It does cost gold, which is kind of just a resource you pick up off the ground, off monsters, or you can trade items in for more gold. And then there is a passive side over here. And the passives also have the similar system where as you level them up, you'll be able to unlock additional little shields. And we can kind of see it like at the breakpoints that they level up. So like this one was 4 and 8. This one's 6 and 12, 6 and 12, 6 and 12, 5 and 10, 4 and 8 again. So there's a little bit different breakpoints, and these all have their own like little available feats that these can be supported with, which I thought was pretty neat as well, just to have some different like kind of builds that could possibly be popping off here, which is pretty nice. Now, the one thing I didn't really like about this setup is it kind of feels like you're probably going to be focused primarily on one divinity path. It kind of will depend on endgame. And the second one is pretty much going to be there for splash, probably there more for like a neat active skill that maybe you'd want, like a Ring of Flame, for example, which gives you more movement speed, increased fire damage, and then also potentially burns things around you, but has a cooldown, or some nice passive. So like, for example, this, where then I recover some of my mana per second, which is just pretty nice. So more splashing for your second one, as opposed to it kind of really being a true combination. I don't believe that there are any sort of like actives or passives that pop out because you've picked a certain combination. So there's no sort of like storm, earth, tree, if you would. It's more just like you can focus in one and then have the second one there, or maybe even just split your focus between the two. And so I don't really know how that's going to play out at endgame. However, I would kind of prefer there to be like some sort of combination tree, which would be neat. However, if they're going to be adding like even 10 of these different masteries, which I think is probably the plan, that's a lot of different balancing and different passives to be putting into the game. So it kind of makes sense what's going on there. And we also do have attributes. Attributes you can pretty much invest into agility, vigor, might, or knowledge. And these are going to basically allow you to unlock items. And so like, for example, if you want to use light armor, medium armor, or fast weapons, you probably have to invest into agility. It also will give you more damage towards things like strike damage and pierce damage, which I believe is melee damage basically. And then it also gives you poison and lightning damage. Whereas down here, you would get fire and cold damage. And so pretty much like the different things will affect the ones next to it. So might is physical and fire and cold, whereas agility is physical and poison and lightning. Vigor will affect all of them. So if you just want to like slam all your points in the middle, you pretty much will probably slam all your points in the middle as long as you're meeting the requirements you need for your armor. One thing I noted, there was no respecking for this yet, which is a little bit annoying. And there is kind of a whole screen here that does give you a whole bunch of information about your stats, although some of them are definitely missing some information, like total physical armor is 105, but what does that actually mean? Who knows? Now, in terms of gear, very standard fare here, just like normal and magic and even rare gear as well. And most of this just didn't really seem all that interesting per se. Like you might find an upgrade where it's like, hey, this has more armor, It has more energy barrier, but doesn't like have any stats. I don't know if this is good. It does have its own appearances, which I do think is pretty cool. Everything kind of has its own look in the game, and your character's appearance will change depending on what they're wearing. Even their potions will come off their belt. And it does look like you can have like maybe even multiple different types of potions potentially in the future. We'll have to see how that goes. But then in terms of gameplay, like this is like a, just a spellcaster who likes to drop lightning down on enemies. And this particular section here has like enemies that move around pretty fast, but I can just like freeze them and lock them down inside my storm. And I can use like my mana potion to recover. But pretty much just like having the ability to drop down this almost semi-persistent big lightning damage seemed pretty darn strong. And I didn't actually even struggle all that much to really go and kill the first boss, and I'm actually dying right now. This section here actually is kind of a step up in difficulty, I'd say, even from the first boss, where these guys move around annoyingly quite a bit. And so it's kind of interesting to see kind of like what they're going to do to kind of set themselves kind of apart from the normal ARPG kind of space. And one of the things I did notice is that in some of the fights, there were enemies that would have telegraphs, like a kind of a rectangle kind of coming out from them where a spell was going to be launched from. And I was pretty excited about that. But I didn't see any of these telegraphs when we went and fought the final boss, which was a little bit of a disappointment. Now, speaking of the final boss, it was actually pretty difficult. Of the Act 1 boss that was. And on melee, it was practically... I had to spend a lot more time kind of honing my build, and it was kind of a little bit disappointing because it kind of felt like with my spellcaster, I could just go and kind of pew pew, whereas on melee, I kind of had to like stop and actually figure out my gear. I invested all of my points into health, which didn't actually give me like very much more health, just like about 10% more. Even some of my defensive stats are lower on this guy for some reason, probably because my gear is just worse. I also went and invested more into our like passive barrier skill to try to give myself some more recovery and just like give ourselves some free healing types of things. You can also invest in like your dodge as well to give yourself more cooldown, to give yourself more dodge distance and all this kind of stuff. You can invest in your basic attack. But one of the things I was excited about with melee is spin to win is one of the very first skills that you can get. Sweeping strike, whirlwind. Basically, you can customize it. So you're either doing this, which is kind of like a sweep, if you would, and then you can customize it over here into whirlwind. And so you can spin to win right off the bat is melee. And I always say that like one of the best ways to tell how good or how bad a game is how they do their spin to win. I'm gonna turn this down just a little bit. It's quite loud. And I kind of found that spin to win like did pretty okay for clearing out monsters. However, for the boss, I didn't really feel like I had a lot of the kind of same materials or same like ability to have defenses as I did just by like playing a ranged character. And it actually took me quite a bit here to even get to the point where I thought I would be able to kill the boss, simply because it has a lot of attacks that are very, very fast. And it also has a lot of attacks that like are zero telegraph. And so I'm going to run up to the boss here. I'm just going to bypass a whole bunch of stuff here. Just kind of give you an idea of what to expect. So you can see that little telegraph there as that guy attacked me just then. A little bleed on us. I do think that the UI for the most part is pretty nice. Most of your information is going to be down here. So you're not going to be like looking top left, looking top right, looking bottom all over the place. So things are a lot more consolidated than like a Path of Exile right now. And we're just waiting, I think, for our potion here to fill up. Although this potion might actually fill up as we do damage. So I'm not really sure how that works. This is like the first boss of the campaign. And it might just absolutely roll me. This is not pre-recorded or anything. But you might notice that it has quite a bit of voice acting, which I think is pretty cool. Hopefully this is something that they kind of keep up with it. You can see right off the bat, we're just going to get hit by a lot of attacks, and we're already dead. I'm going to activate my barrier here, and we're dead. Okay, cool. Now, when you do die, there's no, this is what killed you, this is the damage that you took, and I just like stepped into everything there. However, you can go and teleport right back to your corpse, so you don't need to worry about like managing portals and stuff. And let's try this actually with some healing potions this time. Luckily, she does not repeat her little voice line, but you can see there, we kind of get hit right off the bat. And yeah, like I said, I didn't really feel like I had a lot of the same resources to deal with bosses compared to my range character's strategy of just don't be anywhere near them. And some of those attacks there are really darn fast, like very hard to react. Even though I do have a dodge roll, I'm not really sure how much a normal player is going to be able to react to a attack that just comes out almost instantaneously. Or I guess telegraphs on her dive bomb here. But yeah, even that, like, I felt like I was safe there. Just far enough away from me that I wouldn't necessarily get hit by that. Ooh. And we actually did it this time. Okay, cool. And so for me, the big change that actually made my character able to do that was just simply changing the whirlwind here to actually give me a slow effect and to give armor down, which I think probably gives me quite a bit of damage increase. We've been trying other things like doing more damage on the edge. This goes up to 120% more damage, but this seemed to have more damage to it and actually made those things attackable. Then once you clear certain points, you're able to earn these divinity points, which allow you to unlock more and additional skills in your bar here. So I have warfare and I have earth, and even earth, which is like a spellcaster kind of one, does have some melee attacks like Fisher. Allows you to like drop a little line down. It can have fire inside of it. And then, you know, the other ones here seem to be like mostly spell focused. So like I said before, like if I'm playing melee, I'm probably gonna be playing like warfare with something else here. We just go and spend our divinity points. We have things like stomp, doom horn, which weakens enemies around me, or just leap. Leap is probably something that would be pretty nice to have. And maybe we just like take a point out of that and put that in there. And so there's different things that we could do with this. And it's always kind of interesting to see exactly like what potentially you could put in here. So no exhaust, has less cooldown duration, but it does no damage. I don't know exactly what that means. We can just try that out. So what we need to do is respec different things, and we can just pop a point in here, and we actually need 2 points for that. So some of them are going to require multiple shields as opposed to just one. So it does seem like that does have still a cooldown, which I don't really know what the point of this is. I guess no exhaust. I don't know what that is. So yeah, there's like a lot of customization that's going to go into some of this. You'll have to figure out kind of like what your build is going to look like. On launch and landing has a chance to stun enemies, more cooldown charges, but more base cooldown, for example. So I can, you know, get more leaps, and maybe this would be kind of good. You kind of figure out like what your build is going to be, but it does seem like it's pretty much going to be like super duper focused on one mastery, and then the other one is going to be kind of just there for splash. Now I am hoping that we're going to get more masteries like before maybe the game comes out. We can get more information about what to expect here, but it does seem like melee kind of is missing a little bit of defensive layers at this point, especially early on. That boss was definitely a lot more difficult on melee compared to just dropping lightning storms down, but maybe I got lucky. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Is this kind of interesting to you? Just kind of see the different things that you could potentially get. Some of these things are, potentially adding a little bit of damage, a little bit more defenses, and yeah, it's kind of interesting to see what's going on. Like this, for example, here, this passive, whenever you hit an enemy with a melee skill, you increase damage and movement speed, something that, is pretty much an auto pick, I think, if you're playing any sort of melee skill. So we probably would just go for that right away. Pick that, and we just put that in there. And so, yeah, now we just get auto guaranteed movement speed. And then while affected by combat rush, gain increased armor. While affected, get increased weapon damage. So a lot of these are just very, very powerful. Some of these other ones like projectile speed, while below half health, heal for 1% maximum health. So some of these could be potentially, pretty darn powerful. We'll just see what goes on. Very, very fun, interesting to test out. And yeah, I'm just hoping to see maybe a little bit more detail, like the items and stuff. I don't know if there's gonna be crafting. I don't know if it's all gonna be like this random loot on the ground. I don't know if there's gonna be trading. I don't know really a lot of information about the game yet. So hopefully we'll find out more info coming soon. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. We'll see you soon.